What does he have to say for those who are not just under authority, but those who are in authority? Masters, do the same to them, and stop your threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven. There's no partiality with him. So here's what he's saying. Every boss who is a Christian has a boss named Jesus. So what he's saying is, if Jesus is your boss, he's in authority over you, then you treat others under your authority as he treats you. And he gives us 3 ways to do that. Number 1, he's basically saying care for your employees. Care for those under your leadership. Okay? Who's under your authority? Are you gracious and generous and kind? I'm not talking about giving away the farm and being a bad steward and bankrupting the organization or being absolutely out of control. But what I am saying is, do your employees know, those of us who have the opportunity to be in leadership in an organization, do they know that we love them? Do we know that we appreciate them? And are we reasonably generous toward them? This is things like a fair salary, a decent benefits package. A decent benefits package. Let's just be honest and say that for an employer, one of the great expenses is healthcare costs. So for us as a church, as we sat down looking at healthcare even for Marissa, it was like, okay, here's all the plans. Well, this one's cheaper, but this one would be more loving. Because this pushes a lot of the burden to the employees. This pushes some of the burden to the church, and especially in a church like ours where there's a lot of young couples on staff and a lot of people having babies. If you don't read the fine point on the maternity aspect of the compensation plan, the benefits package, you could really hurt a lot of families, right? So we carefully, by God's grace, we go through those things, we look at those things, try to figure out how could we be fair in our compensation. How could we be generous with our benefits? How could we lovingly provide for the whole family, medical, dental, retirement, even a death benefit, so that if something tragically happens, and let's say there's a widow and kids left, that there is something from the employment of the church to be helpful, these kinds of considerations. Now, for those of you who are employers, this can seem onerous because we live in a day where people use their company and leave their company. But if your heart is loving and generous and kind and compassionate, you're at least doing the right thing, and some will appreciate it. It could reduce those who want to leave because they are loved in a way that is unique and unusual. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. And he says as well, stop threatening. This is when an employee is obstinate, they're rebellious, they're defiant. It's not that they can't do the job, it's that they won't do the job. But they still want the paycheck. And what happens then is the employer can get angry. So those of you who are employees, here's the reasons that employers can sometimes get angry. Sometimes it's office politics. It's the collection of people who are against the leader. Sometimes it's the sabotage, the thievery. There are sometimes when someone just quits, stuff doesn't roll downhill, it rolls uphill. Which means if you have a lot of responsibilities and you don't take care of them, or you just walk away and leave them, then they come up to the leader, and then the leader's very frustrated because now everyone else's work is collapsing into their life and they're overwhelmed. Those of you who are leaders understand what I'm saying, right? Stuff doesn't roll downhill, it rolls uphill to the leader. The leader then can get frustrated. He says, don't threaten. And in that context, it was probably threatening to kill them, which is kind of a big threat. Okay. In our day, if your boss looks at you and says, you need to do a better job or I got to let you go, that's not threatening, that's prophesying, okay? They are just predicting the inevitable future that is forthcoming for you, okay? If they're paying you and they're telling you that you're at risk of losing your job, that's not threatening you, that's actually being honest with you. But what he says is, employers, watch how you use your authority for those who are under your authority. And then thirdly, people work for you, but you work for who? Jesus. Okay, I'll give you an example. When we started Marsville Church, I was an unpaid volunteer the first 3 years. None of my salary came to me from the church. So I worked another job on the side. We started broke and young, and some of you know the story. I didn't have a boss. Right, I was the only person working at the church. What I did with my time was really flexible. Do you think I work hard? Okay, we started with nothing. By God's grace, we have something. I'll be honest with you, I work really hard. Nobody has to motivate me. Jesus is my boss. That's my motivation. Let me say this, okay? If you're saying, I just don't feel motivated, then you forgot who your boss is. If Jesus doesn't motivate you, then the company's mission statement, some sort of carrot on the end of a stick, financial reward, if Jesus doesn't motivate you, nothing will motivate you. Okay? For me, I work for Jesus. Okay? I work for Jesus. As a pastor, that's a little clearer than the janitor or the barista or the truck driver or the accountant. But ultimately, if we're Christians, our mind is, I ultimately work for Jesus. So my practice has been for 17 years at Mars Hill, I work 6+ days a week. The Bible says to take a day off. I take a day off. I work very, very hard. I don't want to just put in my hours. I want to produce results by the empowering grace of God. The goal is never to do as little as you can to earn as much as you can. The goal is never even to just retire, but even if you're not paid, to still be fruitful and to serve Jesus, to make your life count, to do something that matters. And here he's saying that Jesus is their master, those who are under authority, and your master, those who are in authority, and he has no partiality. He doesn't look and say, well, if you're the leader, you get to do less, or if you're the follower, you get to do less. He says, hey, you're all my people, and I know what it's like to swing a hammer and go to work and make ends meet, and I want you, whether you're in authority or under authority, to conduct yourself in a way that is godly, to do your good work as an act of worship. Now, some of you are immediately unmotivated because you say, it doesn't matter. I won't get the raise. I won't get the promotion. I won't get compensated. I won't get thanked. God knows